Hi, welcome back to the ISM Podcast 2024. This week's topic is study habits, and we are here with many teachers and students that are going to talk a bit about this. So let's go around the table and introduce ourselves. My name is Ava Tabol, and I am this year's ISM Secondary School Head Girl.
Thank you, Ava. My name is Lily Rose Gomin, and I'm in year 12. Thank you for inviting me here today.
And I'm Michelle. I am the other ISM head girl.
Good morning. I'm Ms Cestanaro. I teach science and biology in both middle school and high school.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Rob Henry. I'm the head of secondary here at ISM.
And I'm Jonathan Elliott. I'm the IB Diploma Coordinator here.
Great. So my first question for you is, we have so many tasks and assignments approaching this exam season, but how do we maintain all this with our time? From a teacher's perspective, what do you think is the best to do before we approach these difficult weeks?
I think the most important thing is planning your time. You're absolutely right. You've got a huge amount to revise, and there's no way you can hope to do it in the night before. So make a planner and stick to the planner in weeks and weeks before rather than the days or hours before.
But what if you don't know how to balance the subjects? Like some subjects might be require more work. How do you recommend students to balance their time out?
I think you need to be very disciplined and make sure you do allocate enough time to all of your subjects. You need to be very careful if you're thinking that some subjects require considerably more hours than others, because then you're in danger of forgetting a subject or leaving it out. So I do think you need to be very disciplined and give a fairly even amount of time per subject.
Agreed. Yeah, and maybe you should even try to have a rota in your subjects and stick to it, like always in the same order, and make it a routine every other day to switch to another set of topics.
I would say as well to look at your reports. So the teachers spend a lot of time thinking about your report grades, and that gives you an indication of your aptitude in that subject as well. So whilst you do want to balance the amount of time equally with subjects, you yourselves will know how easy it is for you to pick up information in, it could be your favourite subject or a subject that you've historically done well in. So I think to use that information as well in structuring and planning is also key.
When do you guys, students, should start revising for end-of-year exams or IB exams or GCSEs?
Now, the earliest you start working, the more solid your knowledge will be, because that's how your memory works. Your memory doesn't work last minute. It's not a one shot, one take. It's going to be about revising and giving some days where you don't revise and revising this again and again and again. And the more you do that, the stronger it is, and the more solid it is, and the more likely you are to remember those things when you face them in the exam, or be able to use that knowledge in a new situation. So start early, start in small chunks, but do those small chunks very, very regularly and go over the content over and over again.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that. I think there's a concept in education called interleaving, where you are studying different subjects concurrently or different topics within a subject, and it is that constant revisiting. You also have to forget information as well. So, and you will forget. So you forget and you relearn it, and then you forget it and then you relearn it. And each time you're doing that, you are strengthening those connections between recalling that information as well. So I think, as early as possible, you should be revising constantly, almost, and covering topics again and again and again. So I suppose it never stops. Obviously, you will prioritise specific content as you get closer to the exams, though, and it will start to be a bit more focused. But I think as Ms said, it's constant.
Yeah, I think ideally it should be part of an ongoing process. In an ideal world, every day or every couple of days you should be, as a matter of routine, making your notes from your IB diploma subjects or your IGCSE subjects, so that they're already there when you come to revise it. So it's not suddenly it's revision time and you've got to start making your notes. It's part of that ongoing process.
And what about for if someone does end up like taking too long to get to the study and ends up having to cram?
Well, if you get to that point, there's not much you can do but patch and go for the most essential things. So the goal is really not to get to that point. So it's really planning ahead and making sure that you revise in smaller subjects, but all along. Mr. Henry talked about forgetting, and memory is really about that. Memory is going to the point where you nearly forget and then recall the information. That's where it gets stronger. So if you are to the point where it's last minute and there's only, I don't know, a couple hours to revise essential things, that's where you need to take out your syllabus points, or like, you know, the key things you will need to know. What's the key vocab? What are the key concepts you need to master in order to like make the most of that time you have, so you don't get lost in details and you focus on the key elements.
Yeah.
I don't recommend.
Well, yeah, I think as well, yeah, we don't recommend it. I think you have to be honest with yourself as well, that if you've got to that point, anything that you revise will only be for a short-term gain. So you will revise it for a couple of hours, you'll probably remember it for those 3 or 4 hours that you may need it, but it won't serve you any purpose past the exam that you revised for or the piece of work that you're trying to complete. So I think as well as a long-term strategy, you have to be aware of, you know, the potential drawbacks of it as well.
Yeah.
So do you think there's any impact on like studying in different areas, like maybe in your bedroom, dining room, maybe in the library, that has like an effect on how good you study?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is something that I've really thought about that, and I think actually Mr. Elliott gave a good quote, which hopefully he'll talk about in a minute about it. But I think it's the key things are to avoid distraction. So one of the things that we're trying to get students to realise as well, it's not necessarily the quantity of time that you're spending revising, but the quality of time as well. So you know, you could spend 3 hours revising, but you're looking at your phone, you're watching the TV, you have music on, you're talking to family members, you might even have friends over. That's essentially unproductive. So what we really focus on is having quality revision time, and if you can have 30 minutes of quality revision, that is going to be more beneficial and powerful to you than potentially 2 hours of distracted. So what it means in practice is no phone. Okay, aeroplane mode, put it in a different room, give it to your parents, whatever. It means no distractions, it means no TV, it means no having a tab on YouTube open and flick into that. It means just focused revision, and I think that's the real key message to get across, and hopefully Mr. Elliott will remember his quote.
Yes, the quote is a Buddhist quote: when sitting, just sit; when walking, just walk. In other words, when you're working, all you're doing is working. When you're chilling out or relaxing, that's what you're doing. Don't try and mix the two together. So exactly as Mr. Henry said, so when you're working, that is all you're doing. You give yourself a little reward and you give yourself time to do other things, but you'll be amazed at what you can achieve in terms of revision if that's all you're doing, that's all you're focusing on. Otherwise, it can take hours and hours and hours and be not as productive as it should be.
Very agree. That idea of studying in different places also can be interesting. Actually, research proves that it's an efficient learning technique. Like, you always revise your math in the kitchen, always revise your English in your bedroom, always revise your Spanish in the living room. And when you're facing your exam, then you can remember all the stimuli you had at the time when you were practicing, because it's not the same smell, it's not the same sounds in your bedroom or in the kitchen, it's not the same light. And now when you're looking for something in Spanish, you're not looking for it in the bathroom, you're looking for it in the living room where you studied it. So it's also putting yourself in a mindset, in a place, like a physical place where you learned something. So that can be useful. There's another research technique that has been, another technique that has been proven effective by research, and it's having short chunks of learning. It's called the Pomodoro technique, based on those timers that you have in the kitchen. So you set yourself, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes of really fully focused. And here again, less is more, less stimuli, less paper, less screens. It's just only what you want to learn for a very short amount of time. After 15 minutes, when the timer rings, you stop doing what you do. Even if you're in the middle of a sentence, never mind, you stop it and you take a 5-minute break and you start the timer again. But it's those 15 minutes are fully dedicated to what you're doing.
So I know we were mainly talking about the year 11s and the year 13s as we approach exam season, but what do you think that the year 10s and 12s can do to ensure that they also get the top grades when they go to the exams?
Again, I would say start early. I think we have study hubs as well after school in specialist subjects, and they're not as always well attended as we feel that they should be as well. So what they are is, for anyone who doesn't know, but they definitely should, is that, you know, from 4 o'clock till 5 o'clock, we have specialist teachers in all of your subjects available to kind of clarify and work on knowledge as well. So what I would say to students is that if, you know, don't let it get to the point where you start to fall behind. I think make the use of those study hubs, go after school. You don't actually have to stay for the full hour. Okay, you can choose how long you're there for. Get the information or get the clarification you need from your teachers, and then take that away and do it in an environment that you're more comfortable with as well. But I think it's to start early, and it's to use the facilities and the resources that we are putting out to you guys as well. I think that would be a key thing.
And think of it again as part of that process. And when you're in the end of year 13, if you're starting to create revision notes at the end of year 13 for 2 years worth of work, or the end of year 11 for 2 years worth of work, it's a lot of revision notes. If you're in year 12 now and you're making really good revision notes for your subjects, not only is that useful for the end of year 12 or the end of year 10 exams, but also when you're coming to revise for the exams at the end of year 11 or 13, you'll find it's really, really useful to know you've already got those notes. Obviously, you can improve upon them, but just think about it as they're both 2-year courses.
Also, if you're in your 10 or your 12 and you're still not very sure of what your best way to learn is, it's still time to explore and try new things. Do I memorize better when I write things many times, or when I listen to them, and when I discuss them with a friend? Also finding a study buddy, which may not be your best friend, which is very likely not to be your best friend. It's a great moment to explore that, because there are some people that are great resources within your friends group as study partners. So try to create those study groups and make them fun, make them moments you want to go to and you want to study together. I would say it's mostly getting into the habits, the good habits.
And well, this is more specifically for year 12, and I presume most year 13s are done by now, but balancing time for like taking notes, revising, and whilst working on your IA, EEs, and other projects and such.
I think the most important thing there is meeting the deadlines for your IAs and your EEs. The school carefully work out an assessment calendar which ensures that those pieces of assessment work are done well before the external examinations, and it's the same for year 12 as well. We don't have major deadlines coming up to the exams. So the students who are currently in year 13 who have met all their deadlines are in a pretty decent position. They can devote all of their time to preparing for the exams. Those students who have not met their deadlines then find they've got a problem, because they're meant to be revising, but then they're also meant to work on their IA and what have you. So my advice to year 12 would be to make sure you meet all those deadlines, even if they seem, well, why do I need to hand this in now when I've got loads of months before the end of the course? Meet those deadlines, because those deadlines are there for a reason, to take the pressure off when it comes to examination season.
Yeah, and that's something that we as a school researched and looked into as well, because I think in previous years it has been that a lot of those deadlines did fall into year 13. So one of the things that we've worked on is bringing them into year 12 more. Now, I know for year 12 students, they might feel, well, there's a lot more pressure.
Yeah, we can tell.
But the whole point of it is that actually it's spreading the pressure right the way through the 2 years, rather than that you get to year 13 and you have all of the deadlines, you have your extended essay. And I think that's one of the things that last year's year 13, some of them were still submitting extended essays up to the very last point, and that definitely impacted their ability to revise. So I suppose from our message to you guys as well is to understand why we've made that decision to put you under more pressure in year 12, because actually you'll thank us for it in year 13.
And I think if you ask yourself that question now that you are in year 12, then you're in a good place. It means that you realize that those other things, IAs, E's, are going to take you a lot of time. So it's important to realize that you're going to need to dedicate a lot of energy and time to those things. So that's the first step. And then you can start prioritizing and saying, okay, what's the next deadline? What is more important? Is it completing my notes and making that look good? Or is it meeting that deadline that is for tomorrow? Well, okay, it's meeting that deadline. So make sure you make the wise choices so you can keep up with the pace, because not only if you miss a deadline, it's not only that deadline that is missed, it's also the stress that you missed it, and that stress just puts even more pressure on the next deadlines. So do yourself a favor, meet the deadlines, that stress is behind, and you can move to the next.
Yeah. And what I would say lastly as well is that if you're struggling with a deadline, then make the teacher aware of it as soon as possible. I think it's sometimes students kind of fall into the trap of just missing a deadline without notification, and I think that's often something that actually we can look and work with you and help you with as well.
Yeah, don't forget that teachers are partners on that process of IAs and EEs. They are not the enemy. So if you're falling behind, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're lost, if you're scared, go talk to them. It's all about communication. It goes both ways. It's not only us feeding you info, it's you feeding back to us. Okay, that's where I am. That's the help I need. Try to identify your strong points and weak points so we can help you the best of our ability.
Thank you. So this comes to an end of our ISM podcast. I'm sure that these tips will be very helpful to all of secondary school, and we hope to see you soon on the ISM podcast once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.